afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's MacEwan Celebrates Month of Scholarship presentation. My name is Dr. Jennifer Long, and I'm the moderator for this event. I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather in Treaty 6 territory is the traditional gathering place for many Indigenous people. We honor and respect the history, languages, ceremonies, and culture of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who call this territory home. The First Peoples' connection to the land teaches us about our inherent responsibility to protect and respect Mother Earth. With this acknowledgement, we honor the ancestors and children who have been buried here, missing and murdered Indigenous women and men, and the process of ongoing collective healing for all human beings. We are reminded that we are all treaty people and of our responsibility we have to one another. And like other of my colleagues have done in the past, these acknowledgements are just a step, one step in our role as treaty people. Something that I like to do at the end of these treaty acknowledgements, these land acknowledgements, is to talk about what I've done in terms of trying to do something about this process. And I have just recently brought together toiletries to give to the Treaty 6 outreach people, which I'll be giving to them this Thursday. So that's part of what I do to honor this process. So thank you very much for coming today, our one of the very first sessions for this MacEwan Celebrates Month of Scholarship presentation. Today we are joined by Dr. Rita Dhungel, who is an assistant professor at the School of Social Work, for their presentation, Promoting Personal and Social Transformation Through Social Justice Research. So if you have any questions, please ask them to me in the chat. You can do that by clicking my name, Jennifer Long, in the chat box, and it will come straight to me. You can ask the chat and I will address them during the question and answer period at the end of this presentation. And with that, I'll share my screen and Dr. Dhungel can begin her presentation. So let me just do that and I will mute myself. And take it away.
Mm-hmm. Am I okay to go, Jane?
You got it.
Hi, Jane.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me? Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are hearing me. And if you are hearing me, you can just give me a response, yes, or there are lots of icons that you can click. Okay, I'm so sorry for our technical difficulties. So thank you for your patience, and I'm really thrilled to share some of my work experience with women living with HIV and also trafficking survivors who were trafficked for sexual exploitation in India. So my topic is today to share with you promoting personal and social transformation through social justice research. Next slide, please. Dr. Jane already acknowledged the land, so I would like to recognize that I'm a settler in Territory Treaty 6. And also I would like to recognize the co-researchers who significantly worked with me in this knowledge construction process. And now they have a group, and the names of the group is Women's Actions Research Group. And the last but not the least, I would like to recognize the research office, MacEwan University. Without their support, then I would not be able to do the second research, which was built on the first research for my doctoral program. The second research, I got the project grant from the research office, MacEwan University, to do some social justice research. So thank you, everyone. Next slide, please. I'm not going to spend lots of time to talk about my positional identity. The reason I brought this because I'm doing social justice research, and I have been doing social justice research. So my positionality and my standpoint clearly speaks to my aspirations for social justice research. So obviously, I'm an immigrant. I came from Nepal. I have a map of Nepal here, and I'm an assistant professor with School of Social Work at MacEwan University, and I am a big big fan of Paulo Ferro. Paulo Ferro is the founder of Popular Educator. And I'm also, even though I'm in academia, I'm teaching, but I always feel like I'm a community builder and I'm a community organizer, and I'm still working lots of, in a wide range of community practice in Edmonton and Calgary. And I'm a feminist participatory action researcher. Next slide, please. This is my relational and community identity. It's very important to me, right? Community identity to share with you. Of course, I'm a daughter, wife, mother, and I'm a spiritual person. When I say I'm a spiritual person, I'm connected to people and I'm connected to nature. And of course, food. Everybody knows that I love food, and this is our staple food in Nepal: rice and curry and lentils. So I love food. And of course, I had an opportunity to work with one of the fellows from the University of Calgary, her name is Lisa Lorenzetti, and she was a good mentor. When I came here as a new immigrant, I had lots of challenges, and she was the one who provided me lots of ample opportunities to get out and do more work. So she's a good mentor, and then I learned from her, and this is another my principle, both in community practice and teaching, to be a good leader, so I can create other leaders in community to do more work to change community and allyship. So I strongly believe in allyship to bring community change and social change. Thank you. So next slide, please. I have been asked several times, people are asking why social justice research, because sometimes it's a little bit challenging to get funding when we always try to put social justice research. So there are a few things that I would like to bring into your attention. That, of course, I am a social worker, and we are deeply rooted in social justice work, and we do, we use social justice motive in our practice, in our teaching, but not necessarily in research in the same manner as it should be. And my ethical and my aspirations for social justice and ethical research, that always motivate me to do more social justice research. And the last but not the least, my work experience in India. Please, next slide. So I know some people already heard about my stories, but uncovering the iceberg reality. Using this iceberg, I'm just sharing why it's so important to do social justice research in social sciences, or in this world where we can see lots of injustice and inequality happening, right? So I do remember it was in 2004. I will just try my best to briefly share my story. I had an opportunity to do work on Safe on Migration project, and we went to India, and we went to brothels in India, and we talked to Nepalese women to talk about safe migration. Still remember the event that happened in one brothel. We were talking about their stories, and then they were sharing. Can you please go just next slide, please? Just arrow. You can, yeah. Okay, yeah. And they were saying, we're working, we have fancy, yeah, you can just continue, fancy dress, we have good food here in brothels, and we are providing some support in our back home, and we have money. So they were saying, we are happy here. And we were just having conversation, and of course we know I look like Indian, and then we were speaking in Hindi language, and at the same time they were asking about some of my personal things. And then I asked them, once we have some conversations happen, then I asked, what part of the city you are from Nepal? And they just picked ABCD communities. And then it was very unintentional, I said, oh, ABCD communities, I know those communities in my own Nepali language. So it changed the whole dynamic. What happened after that, when people were saying, I have good food, I'm supporting my families in back home, I have money, what do I need? And then all of a sudden they started saying that I'm lying to you, I'm crying, and they were crying, and they had fear, right? And I started to dive in deeper, and then I found that they had lots of fear, they have lots lots of threatening, because if people found that they were trafficked to brothels and they are working in brothels, then their families might have been exiled from their communities. So, and family prestige, and it's very insecure, because if they are rescued, or if they go back to their community in Nepal, then there might not be job for them. So they have lots of insecurity, and the threatening in terms of their the in charge of the brothels were saying that if you don't lie to people, then you would never meet your families. You would stay here forever. So you would say that you are happy here. So that's kind of threatening they were receiving from the brothels. And then the last one, please, Jane. Re-victimized. So they were also afraid to be re-victimized. If they tell the truth, what happens? They go back to Nepal, and there is still injustice, inequality, is structural challenges they experience, and then chances are very high to re-victimize. And when they are re-victimized, they have to go back to the same environment. So that's why they were saying. So that's the iceberg I had an opportunity to uncover the reality. And then I thought it was on a structure interview I did with the women in an informal conversation, but still people were not telling me the truth, but the reality was different, right? And that's why I feel like, I believe quantitative study, or I believe quantitative study, qualitative studies, but at the same time, I just felt like we really need to spend enormous amount of time with the communities if we really want to unpack the challenges they are experiencing. Next slide, please. So what my experiential learning after that visit, so there are 4 key fundamentals I came up with. One is the commonalities. If we really want to uncover their realities through interaction, then 90 minutes interview doesn't work. So commonalities, right? We need to start with some commonalities. So in that context, when I started speaking my own language, even though it was unintentional, there was commonalities, and people found that, oh, Rita speaks Nepali language, I speak Nepali. Then they started telling me the truth. Or we can start with our lived experience. When we start with our lived experience, people feel like there are some commonalities. Of course, diversity is critically important as we explore commonalities, but at the same time, if we really want to engage with communities, I find out that commonalities are the first step to move forward. And then engagement, that helped me to engage with the women, right? And they started talking about the stories. And then another piece I noticed, that learning attitude. It's not like we are there to go with pen and paper or computer. Unstructured interviews are very valuable when we are working with disenfranchised, marginalized, and the most vulnerable communities like the women who are working in brothels. I didn't have a pen, I didn't have anything. I just said, I would like to learn something more about you. And then they see the genuineness that is coming from me, that I really want to work with them. I really want to learn from them. So that is something I find out from my experience. And then we can build the trust. So those 4 fundamentals I learned from those environment or the event. Then I have been using those fundamentals or those essentials in my social justice community-based research. Sometimes we throw community-based research and social justice research, of course, they are intertwined, and most of the fundamentals are similar, but what I found that it depends on the goals, what we would like to achieve at the end of the research. That makes a huge difference how we proceed towards the research, how we bring the communities in the research process. And I came from community practice background. So I always feel like community engagement. Once you engage with communities, then reality, you can explore realities, believe me. And this is some of the experience I have. And I really wanted to share the video. It was 10 minutes video that we performed the drama, but for some reasons we had some technical difficulties. Maybe we won't be able to do today, but I would love you watch this video on your own time and then send me some kind of your experience or even comments or feedback. How does that resonate? How does that resonate with you or your work later today? Yeah, next slide, please. And this is the community-led transformative approaches that we use in social justice research. And I just want you to highlight that I have been using this community-led transformative approaches in several research, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'm just going to, I have brought some information from two different studies. One is I did work with trafficking survivors for human sexual exploitation as part of my doctoral study. And the second one is I just explained a little bit about the funding from the MacEwan University Research Office, that the project grant I did, and I did research with the women living with HIV. So most of the community-led transformative approaches are pretty much similar. And then those are the common approaches that we developed in team, and then we applied in both in personal and social transformation. So we can use social justice research as participatory community-based participatory research or community-based research. But for me, I always want to do participatory action research. The reason I wanted to do, of course, it carries the values of social justice, but at the same time, it allows people, participants or co-researchers, I would use the word co-researchers, to critically understand the social political context that they are living in, and they can explore, okay, this is not my fault, this is the social political context that is escalating my vulnerability to socioeconomic marginalization. So this happened through this research. When we use this research, and as I noted earlier, that commonalities are lived experience. When I was doing this research, there was some reluctance in the beginning that they didn't want to do research with me because when we went through the organization just invited some people, just orientation kind of session as part of my doctoral program, and then there was organization, there was people, but there was definitely, you can see the cold environment. But later, after 2 hours, they are the one who said, Rita, we would like to do the research with you. Okay, let us know where I need to sign in. And I'm like, this is not the signing thing. It's more like you need to understand what we are going to be doing. So that's how I approach them. And then they are the one who got so excited about the research. And this is the video I really wanted to show you what they said in the video, that we never had that opportunity in the past, because everybody comes and take the data for us, interview us, and say that for you, and then leave with the data. And we don't even know where the data goes. But for this research, after that, they had an opportunity to go to do different activities. For example, for the purpose of this this presentation, I just wanted to highlight two things. One is press conference that we organized the press conference, and then the press conference, the video clip also speaks to the press conference. The women, not everybody, but most of the women, they came to the front and they talked to the media people and say that this is the way you can come to us and ask the question. This is not the way to interview us. We are not here to be interviewed. If you want to learn our stories in a respectful manner, please ask those questions or frame your language in an inclusive and participatory manner. So we had 21 recommendations for the media. And media attacked me because they thought this is coming from me. And the women jumped in and said that, no, this is not Rita. Rita was supporting us in moving forward, but we are the one who developed this questionnaire because you are the one who, when we were coming back from India, when we were rescued, and when we landed at the airport, then the media was there. in front of people, and they took the picture, and their pictures were published in the next day. So they were saying, where is your code of conduct? So that it was really powerful when women were sharing what media should be doing and what media should not be doing. And when we say that we are not interested about doing any interviews, then that means no. But they just push people, right? And that's something they share. And then also they talked about the importance and values of participatory action research, and they invited people to join in the research process with them, because participatory action research, social justice research, is not only how to promote social transformation, but also at the personal level. And my focus is basically, of course, I think about policy, social transformation, community change, but I strongly believe that if you are a good leader, you have to create the environment so other leaders can evolve, and then they can change the society. It's not only you can do that. And I know we have, I think Kathleen, I saw Kathleen here. Kathleen always talked about allyship in my classes, in different community events. And this is something I wanted to work with them as an ally, not as a researcher, not as a facilitator, or not as an academic scholar. It's basically as an allyship. And this is something I'm so proud to share with you, that I was able to promote some of their, personal and professional transformation, and then social transformation. The video speaks to the social transformation, how much we got involved in social drama and photo voice. So those are the two experiences that I wanted to share with you. Next slide, please. So some of the examples of transformative impacts that I'm going to share with you. And because of this research, I was able to run my own organization. I learned from the study we have to fight for our own rights. And now I'm teaching this to others through my agency. Rita Didi means sister in Nepali language, made us leaders, and now time has come to come forward and make other girls and women leaders. So she has her own organization, and she was the one who was very shy and very introvert and very not talking in our few meetings. Like, of course, social justice research requires a significant amount of time, and so it doesn't happen for one night or 2 nights. That's why people notice that when Rita engages in research, it's more like a community engagement research and takes so much time. So the other one is also, I really like this one too. I never thought I would be able to travel on my own and able to talk to, not even talk, not even interact. I cannot even believe that I interviewed people who provided support to me upon my arrival from India. I am a different person now. It's amazing. It's really amazing how she is the one who even come to the media press and then talk to the media people. It's just so amazing to see how she was involved in the research process and see she recognized some of the changes on her lives right after 4 or 5 months, but this is all after a year, right? So, and another examples or narratives from one of the co-researchers is, I do not live with fear anymore. Why fear? If my family finds out that I'm living with HIV, they would not ask me to leave the house, and I'm okay with that. I wanted to live at peace. I already cried a lot, and now I want to live happy life. So when we had an opportunity to talk about our experiences, they were the one who were not sharing anything. And I said, that's okay, that's okay. But once we build a relationship, once we build trust, once they know that Rita is here genuinely to learn from us and to support us, not to collect the data and then and do other, not to share with the communities. So when they found that, they were involved significantly in different ways. She was the one who said that, Rita, I want to learn a facilitation skill. I don't have that facilitation skill. Can you please help me to facilitate one of the meetings? And then I can co-facilitate. one of the days. She was the one, and now she was the one who said that I don't have any fear, because she was the one who cried that I don't want to talk about my HIV, because if my family finds out that, they would kick me out from their house, and where to go, what to do. But now she said, I don't have fear. So that as the personal transformation I see, and this is something I wanted to see on my research. Next slide, please. The next one, when we talked about our own reintegration, this is from the research working with trafficking survivors. When we talked about our own reintegration, I went to my manager and asked, why I always work in the kitchen in this shelter? You know, my hands get swollen with water. I have an ability to work in the other areas. She got shocked, and after a month, she asked me if I could do field work, and now I'm a reintegrate officer of our branch office. That was the best aha moment for me when she called me and she said that. It's just so amazing how people are, are working in different ways, or they are enhancing their skills in different ways. They have the talents, they have skills, but my role was just to provide a safe environment so they can work on their own, because the talents are already there, skills are already there. I didn't do anything. I just went to the community and expressed my learning attitude and share some of my experience, and then all of a sudden everything happened. And the next one, I cannot still imagine it was me who performed the drama. I was the one who always silent in our meetings. People used to come and interview me, but this time it was different. We were involved in exploring our own challenges and developed the drama and acted upon them. I have talents and I did not even know until. So even when we were performing dramas, we didn't have any dialogues. We didn't have any script. We just talked about the story, bringing stories from all the co-researchers, and then people started doing practicing, and I was amazed. It was really amazing how the dialogues were coming from their mouth, spontaneous. It was just so interesting to see how women were involved in those dramas, because the drama was not only talking about their stories, but also it's kind of amalgamated the drama. Drama talks about trafficking survivors, and their drama talk about HIV, and then drama talked about, at the end of the day, we have to fight for our social justice, and we have to, otherwise they won't give you the rights they don't want. So we need to work. Where is our human rights? So when the women came to the stage and talk about, and then they were protesting, it was just so I feel so proud of the women, and say that this is something I wanted to see. See, now you were hesitant to talk about your stories, and now you are coming to the mass and saying that we need our own rights. And so this is really amazing, interesting narratives that we receive from the women. This is just some of the examples I wanted to share with you. But since I'm talking about those women, I still feel like I'm with them, and then I have so goosebumps all over my body. It's just so different when I talk about it. It's my aspiration, it's my passion to work with the women. Any women, not only the women from Nepal who are oppressed, who are very oppressed because of the society, because of the political social context, and they don't know where to go, what to do. And when we people like academic people to go and reach out to them and use some community practice framework, and they feel like they are valued, they are heard, and their talent is recognized, and they build confidence that I can do anything, I can do. And I just wanted to share one of the great examples that we had international conference in 2018, the time when I joined the MacEwan and I got dissemination funding, thanks to the research office, that I got the grant. And I went to the international conference, and there was all the women were there with their children, and we were talking about the research research, and they were claiming that we can do some more research. We don't know how to do the research, quantitative, qualitative, we don't know, but we can do community-based research. And if you have any funding, we are able to accept the funding. And it was just everybody was clapping because it's coming from them, and they know what research looks like. Because in the past, there are lots of opportunities in the past to talk to the people who want to do research, but not necessarily they know even we can do research on our own way, and then we can explore our intersectional challenges through social justice research. So that was a really exciting moment when people were saying, and then also they got funding. Two people from England, they just raised their hand and said that we are going to give you some funding to do your work, to do a small research. Where should I send the money? So there was a really aha moment. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so we don't have the video, but I really want to encourage you to watch the video on your own. Today we didn't have time, not time, but the video was not working. So yeah, that's pretty much for me. I had a plan to watch the video and then have some discussions about the social justice research and process. Of course, outcomes are important, but the process. But unfortunately, we don't have the video here, but I would be happy to have some more conversations with you. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, that's all.
So thank you so much, Dhungel, for your presentation today. While we get everybody a chance to start to gather their questions, can you explain to us a little bit about what was in the video itself? And you know, for those of us that will have time later to go back and look at it, can you give us a brief overview of what that looked like?
Sure. So the video clip has actually the video clip speaks to two different stories. One is not two different stories, two different stories. One is when I did my research with women trafficking survivors. So the press conference, how the press conference was conducted, and the women were talking about their personal transformation through social justice research in that first 2 minutes video clip. And then rest of the 10 minutes video talks about the drama that we performed in Kathmandu, about the story, how a girl from a community, from a very rural areas living in poverty, she was in coercion, and she was sold to brothels in India, and she cried. She wanted to go home, but unfortunately the same threatening that you won't see your family in your whole life if you don't hear us. That's the kind of voices message she received, and then she started working in the brothel, and then the rescue, later she was rescued. That is one of the stories from one co-researchers. And then there was another story that her husband went to India, and then when he came back, then he was diagnosed with HIV, and then the wife was also diagnosed with HIV, and she was kicked out from the home, and then she goes to Kathmandu and experience lots of different challenges, and doctor says you can't have a baby when you have HIV. That's not true, right? So there are pre-treatment, PST treatment, there is treatment, but doctor gave her wrong information, and then she did like she has to go for abortion. But at the same time, the another woman who was trafficking survivors, who was living with HIV and also have a child, and she said, no, this is not the case, I have my child, so you can have you have the rights to have a baby. No one can say you can't do that. And then another story from another woman, that when she takes her children to the school, public school, and then public school denies to take her children because she's living with HIV, and she doesn't want to have any children whose parents are living with HIV. So, and again, she has to fight there. And then later, a group of people who have some power and privilege who are celebrating International HIV Day in a closet room, and then there was no one living with HIV in presence. So they were just having some conversation and celebrating the HIV Day without having the people living with HIV. And then all of a sudden, a group of women, they go there and then they fight and they say that, how dare you are doing this? This is not you. This is for this is our day, and then we need to you need to be working with us rather than you are just having some conversation without us. So that was really the last. And then after the video, we also interviewed some of the audiences who came to watch the drama, and then they said that it was very powerful, and then it was very eye-opening drama. So that's the drama talk. It was very emotional sometimes. That's
Thank you.
That's the overview of the video, Jen.
We'll be sure to watch it. I know I will for sure. We received another question, and I'll just read it here. And it starts, I know you touched on this a bit, but what are the effects, what are effective ways to go into local communities as an outsider and gain their trust? This is also somebody speaking from a privileged perspective and, you know, perhaps not wanting to take over the narrative or really kind of speak on behalf of a community that they might not ethnically or you know, in terms of alignment with other types of, you know, from a privileged perspective, how can you ensure you're not taking over the narrative of historically marginalized populations?
So, as I said earlier, there are lots of different approaches. For me, as a doctoral student, the second research, living with women, living with HIV, it didn't go that much difficult or challenges. But the first one, when I was doing my research on on anti-trafficking movement, then it was a huge challenge. The reason is that because I had my fear. I share the same socioeconomic condition as the women in Nepal they do, but still I have some power. I am in privilege, right? My privilege is I am doing doctoral, and so I just thought several times positionality, my insider and outsider positionality. And sometimes I feel like, no, I don't need to worry about it because I'm insider. And I said, no, Rita, don't think overtly, because you are not insider, you are still outsider. So that's why I did tons of research, what is happening around the communities, what's happening, what are the agents. It's just so many research I did for my own reference to be more confident when I go and talk to the PO, talk to the community. And as I said to you earlier, that there is always reluctance. That's why I know I'm not against going through community organizations, but sometimes if you really want to promote personal and professional transformation of individuals, then sometimes it takes time and patience. And then, of course, the organizations are channels, but I would say that I would be open to have some conversations with the people who are going to be working with me in the long run, because there was some kind of misinformation relate to the communities. When I talk to the organization said, Rita is coming to interview you. And then it's a participatory action research. I don't know what participatory action research is. It's not the case. I even explained them what participatory action research, how that works, but it takes time, because this was the first time in Nepal we use participatory action research in anti-trafficking movement. So it was a huge thing. That's why I really want to spend so much time just to reach out to the community. And then in order to reach out to the community, I always say that I'm here to learn. And then also, again, I came from community practice background. People see your genuineness. That's how I found that. In like 2 hours, when there was reluctance, they are the one who called me next day, said, okay, we are ready to do research, right? In 2 hours, they said, we are ready to sign in. And then next day, they said that they called me. So it's basically genuinely approach, but at the same time, I would say some commonalities and reflective practice. This is so important. I believe me, in 1 year, I have been using my reflective practice as a, not as a researcher, not as a facilitator, just as a Nepali women. Even several times, did I do something wrong? But I try to use inclusive language. I'm the person who always want to promote participatory approach. This is my leadership style. My participatory approach is my own strength. I always say that, even in my leadership style. I know some of my students who have worked with me through practicum, they know my leadership style is very participatory, and that approach would definitely support me in interacting with the people. And then later, when they see that there was trust established, and then they are the one who start talking about their own stories. That was my experience.
Thank you so much. And thank you to those who are putting in some questions. We still have more to go. So the next question comes from somebody who starts off with amazing presentation. I would agree with that statement. They continue, learning about participatory action research is fascinating. Question, I appreciate your iceberg metaphor. Did you share the bottom of the iceberg findings you presented earlier with your participants? And if so, are those categories their interpretations or yours? Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So those are those.
Share it?
Sorry, Jen, I missed you for a second.
Did you want me to go back and share the iceberg metaphor again?
No, I'm more visualized person, but thank you so much. I'm good with that. Of course. So this was the research we shared. This is the first time I'm using iceberg metaphor, but I have been used iceberg metaphor in different ways, but not for this sharing. Yes, I did. And then that was their language, like every language that was their language. That is their word. And then later, even I wanted to confirm, it's not like I wanted to confirm, because I don't really do quantitative studies, not reliability or validity. But once I work with the women later, and then I said that this is something I heard, and then they said that, oh, maybe I was one of the women when I said this, because this is their reality. And then I definitely share whatever the research I share, I have done. Of course, some of the language, sometimes language comes as a barrier. That's why I'm also thinking to publish a book in Nepali language, so everybody can read, because I share with them, and then it's language, and then sometimes it doesn't make a sense, right? So, but I usually, even though sometimes we do, like this last summer, I did research with women living with HIV, but trying to explore the experiences during COVID. And then I share the findings on Google, and it was really interesting. People were saying, did I say that? Yeah, I think language is different. And I'm saying, okay, what language do you want me to add? So that was always me. It's more participatory. That's why it's very slow. My research is always slow, but I feel so, at the end of the day, I feel so proud of see the changes. And they know the research. And I totally forgot to tell you, the person who said that I'm a reintegrated officer, she's involved, she's on the research committee, research board now in her office. That was really, she knows how to, even she was involved in data analysis part. That's why she's there.
That's fantastic. Those kind of outcomes, I think for participatory action research, especially when we can see the transformation that's been in the local community, is just fabulous. I've had a couple of questions that have come through, and so I wanted to kind of sort of hopefully amalgamate some of them so that we can hit as many questions as we can. And so one question was, Rita, what are the next few studies going to be? And perhaps you could think about that with regard to, I see a connection to your original study. Are your future studies going to be in the same place? And if not, how might you see your own personal identity, for example, ethnic or racialized identity, gender or cultural identity, impacting your future studies, whether they be here in Canada or in Nepal, in India? Where do you see this going?
I'm currently, I haven't done the research, but in my next few months, and I would probably be starting the same because I'm just really excited about, not really excited, it's really important to address this issue. So women living with HIV here in Calgary and Edmonton. So I'm going to be working with the racialized people living with HIV in Calgary and Edmonton, trying to explore some intersectional operation from social determinants of health perspectives and equity perspective. And there are a couple of students are going to be involved on that research. So as Jane, you brought like my own positionality as an immigrant and racialized, right? So this is something that's really important for me to do. And of course, I really, because social justice research or participatory action research doesn't end. The goal. One of the goal is to promote sustainability, and then this is one other region that we always have some conversation going on. The last December we celebrated human rights days together. They talked about what human rights is, and we talked about human rights. So we are still touch on base, doing some research, doing some events, but I don't have any concrete plans at this point to do the research. But I really want to focus on Maine at this point, Maine's perspectives about women living with HIV and women who were struggling or experiencing challenges in their reintegration, because Maine doesn't want to get married to any women if they found the history working in brothels. So that's something I have been thinking to do, working with men. I never had an opportunity to work with men, so this is something I'm thinking to work on. Anti-trafficking movement, working with men.
Wow, that sounds like such an exciting research. I know I'm probably speaking to the Office of Research Services when I say they'll definitely have you back to talk more about that. The one final question that we have for you today, as we're closing in on 12:55 here, we're going to be done in about 5 minutes, is what role do you see students having, particularly MacEwan social work students, but perhaps students from afar, in the research that you've done to date, or perhaps in your future research?
Sorry, what was your question again? I lost you for a second.
The question was, what role do you see students having in your past research or in your future research?
Okay, great. This is something I really want to share. I always work with students, but sometimes I tell my student, you might get tired with me one day. So I really want to see, because my pedagogy, teaching pedagogy or learning pedagogy is not only to focus in classroom setting. Outside of the classroom, if we provide some opportunities to learn in a different setting or to learn different. So I always invited, I do teach community practice class, advanced and then basic, and also for diploma. So I always go to classroom and say that, hey, I'm thinking to do this research. If anyone is interested, please send me your name and we can talk. So this is how we got a group, and then people, like students, put their name, and then they do. Like, I really want to provide them with opportunity to work on the research proposal so that they can, if they are planning on doing master or PhD or working on research areas, they feel more confident. So that's why our students, of course, we don't have an opportunity to do everything in the classroom setting, but outside of the classroom setting, we can play a huge role in terms of promoting their personal and professional growth by inviting them in writing proposal and then ethics application. One of my students is currently working on ethics application, and then also definitely they are going to be doing the data collection. But for me, beyond that, they are going to be involved in data analysis and then paper writing. So for example, I'm working with one of my students to write an article about what community-based research look like. So this is something I really want to provide them with opportunities. And our students are very talented. I just feel like, wow, look at you, what you come up with. So yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Dhungel, for your presentation today, for all the various ways that you can help us understand how research is important, can be important to the community and to also the academy.